My wife said, "You're not my priority." So I showed her what that truly means. I never imagined the day would come when my wife and I would become nothing more than strangers sharing the same roof. We were once a couple everyone admired, the kind of love story that made others envious. The ones who finished each other's sentences, who laughed at the most ridiculous jokes, who held hands just because we could. A day never passed without us saying, "I love you," as if it was as natural as breathing. People used to call us soulmates, insisting our bond was unbreakable. And for the longest time, I believed it too. When we first got married, it felt like living in a dream. We built a home together, mapped out our future with excitement, and made promises we thought would never be broken. She used to look at me with such warmth in her eyes that it made me feel invincible, as if her love alone could shield me from anything life threw my way. Every evening, I would come home to find her waiting at the door, greeting me with a soft kiss and a genuine curiosity about my day. We would cook dinner side by side, our hands brushing as we reached for the same spoon, laughter echoing through the kitchen over the silliest things. Our nights were spent wrapped in each other's arms, whispering about our dreams, our fears, and the endless possibilities that lay ahead. But somewhere along the line, things began to shift. At first, I refused to see it. I ignored the signs, convincing myself it was just a rough patch, something fleeting. Maybe work was stressing her out. Maybe she had things weighing on her mind that she didn't know how to share. I told myself it was nothing, just small things. The way she spent more time glued to her phone, scrolling endlessly even when I was right beside her. The way she barely acknowledged me when I walked into the room. The warmth in her eyes slowly faded, replaced by a distance I couldn't reach. The excuses started small. "I'm too tired," she would say when I suggested going out for dinner. "I just have a lot on my mind," when I tried to start a conversation. "I'll be home late" became a message I saw more and more often. With each passing day, the space between us grew wider. One night, after weeks of pretending not to notice, I finally gathered the courage to ask her what was wrong. I thought she would tell me she was overwhelmed, that she needed more support, that we just had to find our way back to each other. I was ready to do whatever it took to fix us, to rebuild what we had lost. But instead, she looked at me with an expression I had never seen before. It wasn't anger, it wasn't sadness, not even frustration, just indifference. "I don't have to prioritize you," she said with a casual shrug. "I have my own life, my own needs. You'll be fine." Something inside me broke. For years, I had devoted myself to making her happy, doing everything I could to be a good husband, the kind of partner she deserved. I always believed love was about sacrifice, about choosing each other every single day, no matter the circumstances. But in that moment, a truth I had been avoiding finally became clear. She no longer saw me the way she once did. That night, something inside me shifted. I stopped trying. I no longer asked how her day was, no longer checked to see when she got home late, no longer planned dates or picked up small gifts I knew she would like. If she wanted a life where I wasn't a priority, I wasn't going to fight it. At first, she didn't seem to notice. She was too caught up in work, in her friends, in the endless scrolling on her phone. But after a while, something changed. One evening, she walked in to find me watching TV alone. "You didn't wait for me to eat?" she asked, a slight frown forming on her face. I barely glanced up. "I figured you were busy." A week later, she brought up our anniversary. "It's coming up soon," she said hesitantly, as if testing my response. "What should we do?" I shrugged. "I don't know. Do you even want to do anything?" She stared at me, as if the realization was just now sinking in that things weren't the same anymore. "I mean, yeah, I guess," she murmured. I nodded but said nothing else. I wanted to see if she would make an effort. She didn't. The day came and went without either of us acknowledging it. The distance between us became unbearable, yet neither of us did anything to close the gap. We didn't argue, but we didn't love either. We had become two people merely coexisting, sharing a home, a bed, a path, but nothing more. The silence between us grew heavier, filled with words left unsaid, emotions buried so deep they might as well have disappeared entirely. Then one night she finally broke. I was lying in bed, scrolling through my phone, when she walked in and sat beside me. She didn't speak right away, just studied my face, searching for traces of the man she once loved. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "I feel like I'm losing you." At first, I didn't react. I kept my eyes on the screen, letting her words sink into my chest. When I finally turned to face her, my voice was calm, steady, but laced with quiet finality. You already did. Her eyes welled with tears as she confessed she had never meant to push me away, that she had taken me for granted. She had assumed I would always be there, always be the one to fight for us, to chase after her no matter how distant she became. But she had been wrong. I had reached my limit. 2 weeks later, I packed my bags. There was no shouting, no dramatic goodbye, just silence. A quiet, unspoken understanding that this was the end. As I stood by the door, ready to leave behind the life we had built, she looked at me, her eyes wide and filled with tears. "Can we fix this?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I exhaled, feeling the ache in my chest, a deep, lingering pain I knew would never fully fade. "You didn't prioritize me when you had the chance," I said softly. "Now I'm prioritizing myself." And with that, I walked away. It's strange how love fades, not in an explosion of anger or slammed doors, but in the quiet realization that sometimes, no matter how much you love someone, they may never love you the same way in return. For years, I had put her first. But for the first time in a long time, I was choosing myself. And for the first time in a long time, I felt free.